Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is the Thursday's 13 episode of the week where we list off 13 things on a list instead of, I don't know, whatever else we do. I did a list yesterday. We do lists whenever we want, really. Let's go ahead. This is
Thursday
Before
13.
Coffee. Yeah, this is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we've started, and we haven't had any caffeine. So, what's, other than these, our list of 13 things, what is in the headlines today? Today on Before Coffee, Netflix has fined millions for misinforming customers. And Facebook inhibits Palestinian stories but boosts Israel's research finds. And
the Boeing Starliner astronauts are stuck in the International Space Station, must delay their return yet again. And we have a 7.3 earthquake to report on in Vanuatu. Where's Vanuatu? We'll find out.
Pollution linked to increased hospital admissions in the UK.
And for the Thursday's 13, we're going to do the 13 times the music died.
And in culture news, let's look at this interview with two Iranian filmmakers who have been charged with propaganda, vulgarity, and spreading prostitution.
And it's National Regifting Day. So if everybody gets this microphone this year, hey, happy Christmas. On December 19th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
Regifting is a great way to give new life to things you don't use anymore. Too much of us just throw stuff away when it's like, this is usable. Somebody could use this.
Yeah.
Nah, just throw it away. I got a new one for Christmas, you know? It happens a lot.
That's right. Yeah, and again, if we just regift stuff and not buy things from stores, we will tank the big box stores and ruin the economy. And Trump administration will go down in wreckage and ruin like it should.
All part of our big plan.
Yeah, really.
All right.
Oh, definitely. I definitely want the country to fail and fail miserably. I'm going to laugh the whole time. Back to you.
Okay, our first story is coming out of Amsterdam about Netflix. This is on NOS News. The Dutch Data Protection Authority has imposed a fine of 4.75 million euros on streaming service Netflix. For years, the company failed to clearly indicate what it did with the personal data of customers. It was collecting it but not telling you what they did with it. And customers who wanted to know this were often given unclear information. In doing so, Netflix violated the European privacy law, GDPR, according to a regulator. I'm like constantly not centered. Okay. This concerns the privacy data of Netflix customers in all EU countries, because the streaming service is headquartered in Amsterdam. The amount of the fine is based on the seriousness of the violation, the number of potential victims, and the company's turnover. Netflix has millions of customers in the EU and a turnover of billions. So why don't you just find them billions? That would have been more worth it, I think. In terms of seriousness of the violation, there have been worse cases this year, a spokesperson for the regulator said, referring to the fines that private watchdog imposed on Uber and Clearview. Netflix has appealed to the fine, which covers the years of 2018 and 2020. The company stated in a commentary that it has been working for years to improve its privacy policy, and something that is confirmed by AP. Okay, you're working to improve your policy. This still doesn't mean that it was a good enough policy for the EU regulation, so that's nice. Oh, well, we're trying really hard not to break people's privacy rules. Oh, that's sweet. Here's your cookie. You still owe us 2.75 million. So stop complaining. Multimedia companies. Why is Netflix even collecting data? I don't know. If they were just collecting data to be like, oh, these are what shows you would like, you know? Right, when you go on Netflix, it has a big banner, says, because you watch this, you probably like this, right? I can understand using that data for that. But if they're not just clearly saying, we use it for an algorithm to determine what things you like, easy answer, right? Easy answer. But they don't say that, do they? They are vague and, we need it to help your experience on our website to be good. Okay, what does that mean? Just fluff that says we're using your data and selling it, the highest bidder. All right, from Netflix to Facebook, which has been found to be incredibly biased when it comes to what posts it boosts on the website. This is by Gregor Young on The National. Palestinian news outlets have suffered a drop in audience engagement after being hampered by Facebook, research has found. In a detailed analysis of Facebook data, the BBC has discovered newsrooms in the Palestinian territories of Gaza and the West Bank have suffered a fall in engagement since October 2023. Conversely, Israel-based news platforms have seen their engagement increase. The broadcaster has also reported on leaked documents showing that Instagram, another Meta-owned platform, increased its moderation of Palestinian user comments after October 2023. Meta has said any claims it has deliberately suppressed voices are unequivocally false. Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you? Since the start of the conflict, only a few outside reporters have been allowed to enter Gaza, and only when escorted by Israeli army. And so social media has filled the gap for those wanting to hear from people inside Gaza. BBC News Arabic compiled engagement data on the Facebook page of 20 prominent Palestinian-based news organizations in the years leading up to the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel, and in the years since. Data shows a 77% decline after attacks. Wow, I was expecting something like 12, 8. That's low. That's very close. That's a 2/3 of a decline. Very close. Yeah, ridiculously. 3/4 of a decline of any engagement with their posts. Meanwhile, journalists at Palestinian TV have shared statistics showing up a 60% drop in the number of people seeing their posts. The channel has almost 6 million followers on Facebook. So if they have 6 million followers, and let's say they only get 10% of that actually viewing their thing, so let's say that's 100,000 views on their video, and then it's dropped from 60%, so that's like a little, so now instead of getting 100,000 they're getting 50,000 or 70,000 people instead. No, maybe more like 45 or maybe more, just like 60. Yeah, like 60,000 instead of 100,000, which is a huge drop. Interaction was completely restricted and our post stopped reaching people, said Tariq Zaid, a journalist on the channel. On the back of Palestinian journalists raising fears about their online content being hidden by Meta, data analysis was carried out, which showed the pages of Israeli news organizations such as Yediot Arnot, Israel Hayom, and Channel 13 saw their audience engagement increase by 37%. Research was also carried out on Facebook pages for 30 prominent Arabic language news sources based elsewhere, such as Sky News Arabia, Al Jazeera, but those saw an average increase in engagement of 100%. At least 137 Palestinian journalists are reported to have been killed in Gaza since the beginning of the conflict. At the weekend, Israeli strikes in Gaza killed a journalist working for Al Jazeera. Last month, an investigation by The Guardian found that Israeli killing of 3 journalists could be a war crime, according to experts. Yeah, I agree. I think everyone knows that you don't kill journalists because that means you're hiding something. Makes you look way more guilty for sure. You're killing journalists. The probe found that on October 25th at 3 a.m., an Israeli jet shot 2 bombs at the chalet hosting 3 reporters. So they just shot a building randomly with no, or maybe they did know there was journalists in there and killed them on purpose. Cameraman Hassan Najjar and technician Mohammed Rida from pro-Hezbollah outlet Al Mayadeen and cameraman Wissam Qasim from the Hezbollah affiliate outlet Al Manar were all killed in their sleep. Based on the findings, 3 experts in the international humanitarian law said the attack could constitute a war crime and called for further investigation. No, yeah, it's very worrying when you're just killing journalists, and as far as I know, propaganda is not a war crime, because then a lot of countries would be under arrest, because propaganda is a very affluent thing happening. So what reason
Nobody
do you
gets
have
arrested on these charges. Who gets arrested on these charges? That they're going to arrest Netanyahu?
No, they're just killing people on these charges. I'm just saying, what was the reason? Either they didn't know there was journalists in that building that they randomly bombed. They did know they're there, and if they did know they're there, either we killed those journalists because they're terrorists, I guess they could have said, which is, I don't think that you just kill people for that. Or they're spreading propaganda, so we killed them. You know, I just want to know their defense, if they even have a defense, for killing 3 journalists in their sleep. No.
They're victims, don't you understand? That's what their defense is.
They're victims, they can kill everybody, yeah.
Right.
Anyways, that's my 2 stories on don't trust social media, don't trust Netflix, watch your data, make sure you press decline on all those optional cookies, and get your news not just from scrolling through Instagram and Facebook. You need to, you know, get to a place that has news and check it out yourself. Anyways, let's hear before coffee, where we totally do all our research.
Yeah, we're researching the hell out of things in our off hours. Netanyahu don't care. He's just trying to emulate George W. Bush and the lies they told after 9/11. Oh, we're victims. We get to do what we want. Oh, bullshit. Okay. Anyway.
That's my story.
On to the what? Okay. This is a story here from the Weather Channel. Nobody's name on the byline. Rescue efforts continue after a powerful earthquake, possibly the strongest in years, devastating the island nation of Vanuatu, killing at least 9 people. Where's Vanuatu? Vanuatu is in the continental plate of Oceania, which is otherwise known as Australia. It's the same continental plate. So think of that area, where Tonga is, I guess.
The Oceania region.
The Oceania. If you play Risk, I think Oceania is what they call Australia. A previous report had indicated 14 deaths, but hours later, 9 deaths were confirmed by the main hospital. That number is expected to rise. They turned about into 2 words because they had to separate the sentences. About 200 people had been treated for injuries, several of which had been extracted from the rubble. The 7.3 magnitude jolt rocked the region on Tuesday, sending tremors through homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure. Maybe the Earth is breaking apart because we had like a 7.0 just off the coast of California a couple of weeks ago. Maybe the Earth is just going to split apart into 2 Earths, right? Anyway. Witnesses described buildings collapsing, roads blocked by landslides, and hospitals stretched thin as reports of injuries and unconfirmed casualties surfaced. Port Vila, Vanuatu's capital, is without water after the quake destroyed reservoirs. I get vocal fry. According to the UN Humanitarian Office, seaport and airport access were severely limited due to road damage. This could affect aid efforts. Port Vila's main hospital was damaged and patients were transported to a military camp. Health care services were already strained before the earthquake and since then have been overwhelmed, not surprisingly. According to the Clement Chipikolo, Vanuatu's county director at the Christian relief agency World Vision. Power outages and severed communications have made assessing the full extent of destruction difficult, leaving residents in a state of fear and uncertainty aftershocks continue to rumble through the region. White power. I can't read. It says wild power is out. It's awesome. I'm sorry to laugh, but that was really bad reading.
Yeah.
I got my glasses. Reading without my reading glasses. It's fraught with peril. While power is out in swaths of Port Vila, the biggest fear among aid agencies was the lack of water. 2 large reservoirs serving the capital were totally decimated, the National Disaster Management Office said. Resident Milroy Cainton said people were joining large queues to buy water in stores, but could only purchase 2 or 4 bottles at a time. People are not really concerned about electricity, they're just concerned about water. UNICEF was recording a rise in diarrhea among children, a sign that they'd begun to drink tainted water, said the chief of the Vanuatu office, Eric Durpere. Officials told residents of areas where water had been restored to boil it. At least 10 buildings sustained major damage, many in busy downtown area full of lunchtime shoppers when the quake hit. An unknown number of people were trapped inside. And Caintown, the resident said, And Caintown, the resident said, rescuers had been forced to target their efforts where they believed people could be saved. Caintown was the person the person who manages the shopping center. I'm guessing from that wordage. Michael Thompson, who runs the tourism business in Vanuatu, was among the rescuers and posted a video on Facebook of the frenzied efforts to discover survivors on gurneys, along with the pleas for people to bring tools and water to the site. Officials said Wednesday that Port Vila appeared to be the worst hit area, but some nearby villages and offshore islands had experienced landslides. These bridges were at high risk of collapse in heavy rain, the government said. Social media videos showed rescue efforts through the night for people trapped in buildings, including a 3-story structure that collapsed into its lower floors. Amanda Lathwaite said her husband was among the rescuers, searching for 8 people they could hear yelling inside, but the progress was slow. These people were pulled alive from rubble overnight, her husband Michael Thompson wrote on Facebook. In one video he shared, a dust-covered woman lay on a gurney. Army personnel and civilians worked with tools and shovels, Thompson said. The country does not have capacity to cope with a mass casualty event, Vanuatu-based journalist Dan McGarry told the Associated Press. He had visited Vila Central Hospital, where video showed the Vanuatu Broadcasting and Television Corporation showed crowds outside. Doctors are working as fast as they could at a triage center outside the emergency ward, he said. So there's your earthquake, your latest earthquakes. Vanuatu is positioned in a subduction zone where the Indo-Australian tectonic plates move beneath the Pacific plate, means earthquakes of greater than a magnitude of 6 are not uncommon, and the country's buildings are intended to withstand quake damage, although we don't know how severe a quake they can withstand. There is a point where all buildings are going to fall, no matter how well they're built. And other stories, we've updated the Boeing astronauts. Oh, those poor Boeing astronauts. They're just going to take up residence in the space station, I think. This is from CBSNews.com. Ferris Tanos, Boeing Starliner astronauts stuck at International Space Station, must delay their return yet again. 2 astronauts who traveled to the International Space Station aboard Boeing's troubled Starliner more than 6 months ago will not return to Earth until at least March now, NASA announced Tuesday. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are more famous than most astronauts that actually accomplished something. They were basically just getting a ride, and they're supposed. Oh, I'm just saying they were just supposed to be there, get a ride, 8 to 10 days, and that was it, right?
I think becoming an astronaut is an accomplishment because you have to go through rigorous training and a lot of vetting. Okay.
In the macro sense, they accomplished something, just like somebody learning to walk accomplished something, okay? But they didn't do nothing. They were not sent there to do anything that was earth-shattering revelation. They were initially scheduled for 8 to 10 days, but multiple issues with the Starliner prompted a concerned NASA out of caution to leave them behind at the space station and return the capsule to Earth empty in September. That same month, a SpaceX Crew 9 Dragon capsule with reduced 2-person crew and 2 empty seats launched to the space station with the intention of returning with Wilmore and Williams aboard it in February of next year. However, NASA said in a news release Tuesday that Wilmore and Williams replacements traveling aboard SpaceX Crew 10 would be launching the space station no earlier than March 2025, meaning that would be the earliest that Wilmore and Williams will return to Earth. The most recent delay in the Crew 10's launch to give NASA and SpaceX teams time to complete processing on a new Dragon spacecraft for the mission. The Crew 9, carrying Williams, Wilmore, and fellow NASA astronaut Nick Hague and cosmonaut Alexander Gubanoff, could only leave the station following a handover period with Crew 10. The handover period allows Crew 9 to share any lessons learned from the newly arrived crew and support a better transition for ongoing science and maintenance of the complex. NASA did not speculate how long that handover might take. The Starliner The Starliner, Boeing's answer to the Crew Dragon, has faced major headwinds since it went into deployment, including a series of technical issues and budget shortfalls. It finally launched, but after arriving at the space station with its crew, multiple helium leaks were discovered in the Starliner's propulsion system, along with a degraded thrust in 5 of its maneuvering jets. A return in late March or April would mean that the trip was expected to last just over a week for Williams and Wilmore will have been stretched for at least 9 months. Fabrication, testing, and final integration of a new spacecraft is a painstaking endeavor that requires great attention to detail, Steve Stitch, manager for NASA's Command Crew Program, said in a statement on Tuesday about the Crew 10. We appreciate the hard work by the SpaceX team to expand the Dragon fleet in support of our missions and the flexibility of the station program and expedition crews as we work together to complete the new capsule's readiness for flight. There's your story about the stranded astronauts. And we really need to take care of our
They're still stuck in space.
Program.
I hope they're not having a terrible time, because that sounds awful. You're like, honey, I'll be home in a few weeks. I'll see you then. And then it's like, oh no, only 8 to 10 days, right? A few days. I'll see you. See you next week. And then it's like, we're still up here. We're still up here.
Yep, astronaut's one of them full-time jobs.
Yeah,
you're on the job even when you're sleeping. Yep, you're legitimately a full-time job. You're not leaving work for a while. Back to you.
All right. Next article is going to be about air pollution and linking it to increased hospital emissions. That sounds pretty obvious, but it's also linking it to mental health conditions, not just physical health. This is by Helen McArty on the Herald Scotland. Cumulative exposure to air pollution over several years is linked to an increased risk of hospital admissions for mental as well as physical illnesses, according to research carried out in Scotland. The researchers say that the tougher environmental restrictions are needed to relieve pressure on hospital services. Previously published research on the health effects of long-term exposure to air pollution has tended to emphasize deaths rather than hospital admissions, and physical rather than mental ill health. Since they just drew the obvious lines, right? Who's dying from air pollution and what physical things are they attributed from that? But now they're actually looking at all the reasons why somebody might be sent to the hospital because of air pollution. The research, led by a team from St. Andrews University, drew on individual level data from the Scottish longitudinal study, which represents 5% of the Scottish population and includes demographic information from linked censuses. In all, 202,237 people aged 17 and above were included in the analysis. So even though it's only 5% of the population of Scotland, that's still quite a lot of people. Their health and hospital admissions for all causes, cardiovascular, respiratory, or infectious diseases, mental illness, behavior disorders were tracked from Public Health Scotland data and linked to levels of 4 key pollutants for each of the years between 2002 and 2017 exclusively. The 4 pollutants from road traffic and industry compromised nitrogen dioxide, NO2, sulfur dioxide, SO2, particulate matter diameter of at least 10 PM10s, and small particulate matters of at least 2.5 or less PM2.5 per 1 cubic kilometer in each person's residential postcode. Now, if nobody knows anything about particulate matters, that's like really strong coal residue or any kind of residue, just residue that will get stuck in your lungs, okay? Or in some case in your bloodstream, go to your brain and cause you mental illness, I guess is what the idea is. So you don't want particulate matter in your air because your lungs will breathe it in and it'll get settled in there in your little nodules, and then you have kind of basically how you get lung cancer from smoking cigarettes. You fill your lungs full of all this particulate matter and it gets stuck in there forever, and then your lungs are black. Anyways, enough health information. Fluctuations in pollutant levels were observed across the study period. with higher levels recorded in 2002 and 2004. Over the entire period of 2002 to 2017, average levels of NO2, SO2, PM10, and PM2.5 were 12 for NO2, 2 for SO2, 11 for PM10, and just over 7 for PM2.5. So there was a lot of big particulate matter in those, that's not 10, 20 years. Like 15 years, I guess? Yeah, 15 years. In those 15 years, the average annual levels for nitrogen dioxide, PM10 and PM2.5, were lower than 2005's WHO guidelines, but the levels of nitrogen dioxide and PM2.5 were higher than most recent 2021 WHO guidelines. So back then, people were getting a lot of nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter 2.5. The low emission zone in Glasgow has been credited with reducing levels of air pollution from traffic. Average cumulative exposure to air pollution was strongly associated with higher rates of hospital emissions. Higher cumulative exposure to nitrogen dioxide, PM10 and PM2.5, was associated with higher incidence of hospital admissions for all causes, and for cardiovascular, respiratory, and infectious diseases before accounting for residential area. When fully adjusted for cumulative exposure across time, the incidence rate for respiratory disease hospital admissions rose by just over 4% and just over 1% respectively for every 1 increase in particulate matter in 2.5 and nitrogen dioxide pollutants. Now 4% and 1% doesn't seem so bad, but you have to remember that if this is a 200, honestly, anything more than 1% is too much in my argument, but if this is a 200,000 people study, 4% of that is what? 25? Oh, less than that. It's still in the thousands, like still tens of thousands of people being affected by, these particulates in the air and this nitrogen dioxide pollutants. Sulfur dioxide was mainly associated with hospital admission for respiratory disease, while nitrogen dioxide was associated with higher number of hospital admissions for mental illness and behavioral disorders. That's right. Some of the air you breathe might be causing your brain to get out of balance. Authors caution that as the study is observational, no definitive conclusions can be drawn on cause and effect. Yeah, we don't know what's putting the nitrogen in or the sulfur, and if it actually is affecting your mental health. That's fair. But they are happening at the same time. There's also acknowledged that while they have accounted for demographics such as age, sex, ethnicity, and education level, they were not able to account for other potentially influential factors such as lifestyle, BMI, which is not a real measurement. I don't know why they're still using BMI as anything useful. Noise pollution, and the absence of green spaces. Exposure to ambient air pollution was assessed yearly rather than monthly or daily, thus masking seasonal variations, and residential postcodes had to serve a proxy for personal exposure to air pollution. However, they argue that findings echo those previously published research. Mary Abed Al-Ahad, a member of the School of Geography and Sustainable Development who led the research, said policies and interventions on air pollution through stricter environmental regulation, long-term planning, and shifting towards renewable energy could eventually help ease the hospital care burden in Scotland and in the long term. Policies and interventions targeting air pollution emissions such as zero emissions zones or incentives for renewable energy in transportation and energy production sectors to help ease the hospital care burden in the long term, both locally and globally. That's right. Making your air clean can help everyone. So we're mostly just looking at this data so that we know what's happening around us, because you can't just guess. You can't, you know what? It seems like we've solved the air pollution problem, when you don't really know until you actually put the numbers in. So at least for the last 15 years before now, air pollution has gotten worse, and we can only hope to get it down. Also, hello Sarah. I hope you're doing well from Australia.
We can't cut air pollution. What about profits? What are you thinking there? We'll just go live in that other planet.
Mars, where they have no air or atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just go create an atmosphere in another planet because that's
if we get the ability to create atmosphere in Mars, we should just fix ours. You know, if we have the ability to just create atmospheres, we should just fix our atmosphere.
Yeah, this goes out to all those people that think rich people are smart. No, they're not smart. They're greedy, and they've conned you into thinking they're smart. They're not. They don't want to make money. And making money is a con. And in case you haven't been paying attention, those things between TV shows are called commercials, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to sell you shit you don't need. It's a con. It's a con. It's all a con. And they tell you, oh, you must boost the economy, which is complete horseshit. You have to boost your local economy. That takes care of your local people.
Yeah.
The international
100%.
huge corporations don't give a shit about you and your city. They will shut down your factory. They will shut down your stores. They don't care. They are big oligarchs, and they're going to ruin your city if it fixes their bottom line. Anyway.
Yeah. I was talking about this, I think yesterday or the day before. I always get DMs from Chinese companies who try to sell me yoga clothes because I do yoga on my stream channel, right? And they're always like, we can sponsor you. And like, the only sponsor I want is from like a Dutch yoga clothes maker or like German or French. Somebody in my local economy, in the EU economy, not China. China's not going to help me. It's not going to help my neighbor. China doesn't care. Exactly.
That's right. And definitely don't go to the big box stores because they're just going to shut down. Here's the thing. When they shut down these big box stores, big news, right? It's, oh my God, they're closing up Walgreens and CVS. And it's like, well, they were bad business models. Those fuckers should have been paying attention to business school. It ain't everybody else. It's no politician's fault that these businesses
Nobody has
fail.
the right to be at business. It's a risk. Making a business is a risk.
Exactly. Oh my God, the president caused this. No, he didn't. It's just poor. If you can't make money in America, you're a failure. It's just plain and simple. If you want to make money, you will, okay? Now, if you just want to give money to one company, I guess that's your business. But don't complain that, well, why my city? Why does my city suck? Because you spend all your money in corporate nonsense. Man. Don't complain. Nothing wrong with spending money wherever you want, but your complaints fall on deaf ears when your city goes to hell. Why are all these stores closing? Well, nobody shops at them because you go big box all the time. All right, now we're on to the Thursday 13. My little lecture is over.
Hello, Amelie.
This is...
All right, somebody in chat.
The day... Hello. Hey, everybody. Got to hear my diatribe about why do people expect huge corporations to solve the problems. It's not going to happen. They're just going to collect money and smile and laugh and make fun of you as you go. Oh, why am I so poor? Why is everything in my town shut down? Today's Thursday 13 is the day the music died times 13. And as I mentioned before, maybe I didn't mention before, I did a lot of research on this one because I had trouble finding 13. So I'm thoroughly convinced this has only happened.
Yeah.
Right. It's happened to entertainers and other fields. It's happened to other famous people, of course, but it's only happened to musicians 13 times. I swear that's the absolute. I couldn't find anymore. Right. I had to find one from 2017. Right. So we're going to start it off. The first day the music died was December 15th, 1944, somewhere between England and France, where Glenn Miller, we talked about yesterday, was on standby for an earlier flight on December 13th, but was canceled due to bad weather in France. His reservation on December 14th was also canceled. Miller was frustrated and impatient, fearing that the arrangements would not be made in time to accommodate his movement for his unit to France. On a telephone call to Haynes, he learned that a mutual acquaintance, Lieutenant Colonel Norman Bassell of the 8th Air Force Service Command in Milton, Ernest, was flying to France on December 15th. It was to be on board the Nordun UC-64A Norseman assigned to him and piloted by Flight Officer John Stuart Morgan. Bassel invited Miller to join him. Miller's travel orders did not authorize him to board the casual flight. He did not report his intentions to his chain of command. So Miller was in the Army Air Corps. He volunteered, so he had a chain of command. So SHAEF was in the dark concerning Miller's whereabouts, although AAF and RAF combat missions flew that day, as well as numerous transport planes. The RAF training unit at RAF Twinwood Farms near Bedford had stood down, but the aerodrome was still open. At 13:45, Morgan landed at Twinwood, boarded Bassel and Miller, and took off at 13:55. The UC-64 and its occupants were never seen again. The next morning, the Battle of the Bulge began. The 8th Air Force and SHEF did not realize that the UC-64 with Miller on board was missing until 3 days later.
Wow.
So, that's the story we covered yesterday. The next day the music died is the most famous because it was immortalized in the song, where it literally said, "The day the music died." This is February 3rd, 1959. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, also known as J.P. Richardson, near Clear Lake, Iowa. At the time, Holly and his band, consisting of Waylon Jennings, Tony Alsop, and Carl Bunch, were playing at the Winter Dance Party tour across America and Midwest. Rising artists Valens, Richardson, and vocal group Dion and the Belmonts had joined the tour as well. The long journeys between venues on board the cold, uncomfortable tour bus adversely affected performances with cases of flu and even frostbite. Yes, members of the band were in the hospital because of the awful non-heated bus that they had rented, which doesn't anybody else have a bus in the Midwest? Come on, man. I knew buses had to exist. So they couldn't get a decent bus. So after stopping at Clear Lake to perform, frustrated by the conditions on the tour buses, Holly chose to charter a plane to reach their next venue in Moorhead, Minnesota. Richardson, suffering from the flu, swapped places with Jennings and taking a seat on the plane, while Alsop lost his seat to Valens on a coin toss. Imagine that. You died or you lived based on a coin toss. Soon after takeoff, late at night, in a poor wintry weather conditions, pilot Peterson lost control of the light aircraft, a Beechcraft Bonanza, and crashed into a cornfield, killing all four on board, pilot and musicians. The next day the music died was March 5th, 1963. Patsy Cline, Hawkshaw Hawkins, and Cowboy Copus crashed near Nashville, Tennessee. On March 5th, 1963, Patsy traveled from Nashville to Kansas City, where on March 5th, 1963, she appeared in a benefit concert for the family of disc jockey Jack McCall, who had been killed in a traffic accident earlier that year, ironically. Immediately after her performance, she boarded a small plane. These are all small planes, by the way. When you think these big jets,
you have to be careful about small planes. You have to be careful who the pilot is for your small plane. Because some people, I just got my flying license, you know? I haven't had to deal with the emergency turbulence before. And then...
yeah, some of these are just downright tragic because of the pilot error involved. And the big jetliners almost never go down compared to little ones. Okay, so on March 3rd, Patsy, where was I? Okay, she boarded a small plane back in Nashville along with country western performers Cowboy Copus, Harold Hawkshaw Hawkins, and pilot Randy Hughes. Approximately 85 miles west of Nashville, the plane ran into turbulence and crashed. There were no survivors. Shortly before her death, Patsy recorded the single Sweet Dreams, which became number 5 in the country charts after her untimely death at the age of 30. Her best-known song, Crazy, was written by future country western legend Willie Nelson. 10 years after her death, Patsy Cline was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame for the first female soloist chosen for the honor. The next day, the music died, July 31st, that's 1964. Again, this happened in Tennessee, and again as a country music singer. On July 31st, 1964, Reeves took his business partner and manager Dean Manuel, also the pianist of Reeves' backing group, the Blue Boys, left Batesville, Arkansas, and rode to Nashville in a single-engine Beechcraft, another Beechcraft Debonair aircraft. We're not blaming the company that makes them. These are almost all pilot error. They're just taking off during bad weather, which is pilot error, by the way. Taking off during bad weather. The pilot should know better. It ain't up to the passenger to decide when they take off, right? And Reeves was at the controls in this situation. It was the person who died who had controls of the plane. The two had secured a deal on some real estate. While flying over Brentwood, Tennessee, they approached a violent thunderstorm. A subsequent investigation showed that once the small engine airplane became caught in the storm. Reeves suffered spatial disorientation. The singer's widow, Mary Reeves, probably unwittingly started the rumor that he was flying the airplane upside down and assumed he was increasing altitude to clear the storm. However, according to Larry Jordan, author of the 2011 biography Jim Reeves, The Untold Story, the scenario was reviewed by eyewitnesses known to crash investigators who saw the plane overhead immediately before the mishap and confirmed that Reeves was not upside down. Reeves' friend, musician Marty Robbins, recalled hearing the impact of the wreck, alerting authorities to which direction he heard the impact. So one of his friends actually heard the crash. Marty Robbins is pretty famous, by the way. Marty Robbins, very famous. He wrote El Paso, among other songs. Jordan writes extensively about forensic evidence, including the long exclusive tower tape incident report, which suggests that instead of making a right turn to avoid the storm, he had been advised, Reeves turned left in an attempt to follow Franklin Road to the airport. In doing so, he flew further into rain while preoccupied with trying to reestablish his ground references. Reeves let his airspeed get too low and stalled the aircraft. Relying on his instincts more than his training, evidence suggests he failed. He applied full power and pulled back on the yoke before leveling his wings, a fatal but not uncommon mistake that induced a stall spin from which he was too low to recover. All right, so Jim Reeves, that's how he died. At least he was the one at fault for his own death, right? The next day the music died is December 9th, 1967, my birthday, my 5th birthday. Otis Redding died in Madison, Wisconsin. By 1967, the band was traveling to performances in Redding's Beechcraft H-18 airplane. On December 9th, they appeared on the Upbeat television show produced in Cleveland. They played 3 concerts and 2 nights at a club called Leo's Casino. After a phone call with his wife and children, Redding's next stop was Madison, Wisconsin. The next day, Sunday, December 10th, they were to play at the Factory nightclub near the University of Wisconsin. Although the weather was poor with heavy rain and fog, and despite warnings, the plane took off. 4 miles from their destination at Truax Field in Madison, pilot Richard Fraser radioed for permission to land. Shortly thereafter, the plane crashed into Lake Monona. Barkeys, which is a backup band for Otis Redding, Barkeys member Ben Cawley, the accident's only survivor, was sleeping shortly before the accident. He woke just before the impact to see bandmate Fallon Jones look out the window and exclaim, "Oh no!" Cawley said the last thing he remembered before the crash was unbuckling his seatbelt. He then found himself in frigid water, grasping seat cushion to keep afloat. As a non-swimmer, he was unable to rescue the others. The cause of the crash was never determined. Besides Redding, the other victims of the crash were 4 members of the Barkays: guitarist Jimmy King, tenor saxophonist Fallon Jones, organist Ronnie Caldwell, and drummer Carl Cunningham, their valet Matthew Kelly, and the pilot Fraser. The next day the music died, number 6. The next day the music died, and that plane crash had 1 survivor, and probably a lot of people gave hypothermia probably took them out, because there's no way you can survive in ice cold water in Madison, Wisconsin in December.
No,
that water is cold. There's probably a sheet of ice on the lake. September 20th, 1973. Jim Croce and accompanist Maury Morheisen in Natchitoches, hard to say, Louisiana, on Thursday, September 20th, 1973, during Croce's Life and Times tour, which had scheduled for 45 dates, and the day before his ABC single "I Got a Name" was released. Croce and 5 others were killed when they chartered Beechcraft E-18S crashed into a tree shortly after takeoff from the Natchitoches Regional Airport in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Croce was 30 years old. Others killed in the crash were pilot Robert and Elliott. Croce's bandmate Maury, his accompanist. They had 2 guitars where he played, and Maury would play in the background. Maury Morheisen, the manager and booking agent Kenneth D. Cortez, road manager Dennis Rast, and George Stevens, a comedian at the in Natchitoches. He was flying to Sherman, Texas for a concert at Austin College. He was trying to do 2 concerts in 2 places in 1 day and failed miserably. An investigation by the NTSB identified the probable cause as the pilot's failure to see the obstruction because of physical impairment and fog that reduced his vision. 57-year-old Elliott suffered from severe coronary disease and had run 3 miles to the airport from a motel. He had an ATP certificate, 14,290 hours total flight time, and 2,190 hours on a Beechcraft 18 type airplane. Later investigation placed the sole blame on pilot error resulting from disorientation following his takeoff. He ran 3 miles. He was probably low on oxygen. It means his brain was probably low on oxygen. And then he tried to fly a plane. Not a good plan.
Don't do anything under anaerobic shock.
Yeah, and there's even less oxygen when you start flying a plane, right? You go higher and higher, your G-forces.
The air thinner.
A 57-year-old pilot with coronary disease. So he might even have a heart attack, right? Before he smashed into the trees. We don't even know. 1977, October 19th was the next day music died. This was Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, and Casey Gaines, all of the legendary band Leonard Skinner. 2 days after releasing their album, this is weird. It's eerie how it's almost always near a record release, right? Patsy Cline's was, so was Jim Croce's, a couple other ones. This one also, 2 days after releasing their album Street Survivors, Leonard Skinner performed at the Greenville Memorial Art Auditorium in Greenville, South Carolina. The following day, they boarded a Convair. Beechcraft got off easy this time. The Convair this one kind of should piss everybody off anyway. The Convair CV-240 airplane to take them to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where they were to perform at Louisiana State University. The plane ran out of fuel near the end of flight. Now that's pilot error. Didn't put enough gas. My gas card didn't work.
The first thing you do before you do a planned flight is you determine, what the weather's going to be like, what route you're taking to get there, how long that's going to take, how much food you need. That's like piloting 101.
Upon realizing the plane had insufficient fuel, the pilot attempted to navigate to Macomb Airport, 10 miles northeast of the eventual crash site at Mite County, Mississippi, but soon realized that the plane would not make it. As a last resort, they attempted emergency landing in an open field from where the plane eventually went down. Despite their efforts, at approximately 6:52 p.m., the plane skimmed about 100 yards along the top of the tree line before smashing to a large tree and splitting into pieces near Galesburg, Mississippi. Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, and his sister, backing vocalist Cassie Gaines, and assistant road manager Dean Kilpatrick, Captain McCreary, and First Officer William John Gray all died in a crash. Most of the survivors had been seated toward the back of the plane. The survivors, all of whom were seriously injured, were transported to different hospitals for treatment and not immediately aware of the fatalities. Gary Rosington, one of the guitarists, for instance, was not informed until days later by his mother in the hospital that Van Zant had been killed. The next day the music died. Another stupid incident. Just pure stupidity. Randy Rhoads of Ozzy Osbourne's band. That guitar playing on Crazy Train? That's Randy Rhoads, legendary guitar player. And this one's really stupid. This happened in Leesburg, Florida. After driving much of the night, the bus stopped at a Flying Baron Estates in Leesburg, Florida, to fix a malfunctioning air conditioning unit while Osborne remained asleep. On the property owned by the Calhoun Brothers Tour Bus Company, there was an airstrip with helicopters and small planes. Without permission, tour bus driver and private pilot Andrew Aycock took a single-engine Beechcraft F-35 plane registered to Mike Parton. On the first flight, Aycock took keyboardist Don Airy and tour manager Jake Duncan with them as passengers. Duncan later revealed that Aycock buzzed the bus in an attempt to wake drummer Tommy Aldridge. The group then landed. The second flight had Rhoads and makeup artist Rachel Youngblood aboard. Rhoads had tried unsuccessfully to coax bassist Randy Sarzo to join him on the flight. Sarzo chose to get some extra sleep. Smart decision on his part. During the second flight, more attempts were made to buzz the tour bus. Oh, I'm so funny. Aycock succeeded in making 2 close passes, but botched the third attempt. At about 10 a.m. after being in the air for approximately 5 minutes, one of the plane's wing clipped the top of the tour bus, breaking the wing into parts and setting the plane spiraling. The initial impact of the bus crosses roads and Youngblood heads the crash through the plane's windshield. The plane then severed the top of a pine tree and crashed into the garage of a nearby mansion, bursting into flames. Rhoads, who was 25, was killed instantly, as were Aycock and Youngblood. All 3 bodies were burned beyond recognition, and Rhoads was identified by dental records and personal jewelry. According to Sharon Osbourne, who was asleep in the bus and awoken by the crash, they were all admits it was just body parts everywhere. Ew,
awful. And that's why you don't fuck around with airplanes. Pure stupidity.
Just a dumbass. And he didn't have permission to have the fucking plane.
Yeah.
What a dumbass. You want to do that? Do it yourself. Kill yourself, though. Don't take people with you. Next day, music died. The ninth one, this is ninth on our list, was December 31st, 1985. Rick Nelson, if you don't know who Ricky Nelson is, he was one of the first TV pop stars. He was actually pretty good. I mean, Ricky Nelson made some good songs, but he was Ozzie and Harriet's son, and he made songs like, I can't think of any good. I know Hard Party was his big late in his career, but he had Dream. Well, you know, let's not talk about this. We're talking about how they died. Anyway, so Ricky Nelson his years of making great music were probably over, but he was still touring on the strength of all of his music. On December 31st, 1985, Nelson died when his Douglas DC-3, in which he was a passenger, crashed into trees, poles, and electrical wires when it attempted to make an emergency landing while in flight between Guntersville, Alabama, and Dallas, Texas, where he was performing a New Year's Eve concert. Nelson's DC-3 seemed constantly beset by mechanical problems. The fatal fire was caused by defective heater and tail of the plane. The heater caught fire and filled the cabin with toxic fumes. While both pilots survived, all 7 passengers died. So they died from smoke inhalation. Yeah, died from smoke inhalation because of this old piece of crap they were flying. By the way,
the window.
Yeah, let all the freaking air out. Anyway, that might have saved them actually, because there's enough air as you're cruising towards the ground.
I would do it. I would open a window.
I would definitely.
I'd rather not suffocate to death.
Yeah, you're going to die in a ball of fire. Let's do it the right way. On August 27th, 1990 was the next day the music died. That was Stevie Ray Vaughan in East Troy, Wisconsin on Monday, August 27th, 1990. Huh? Yeah, just a couple. Most of them in the South. Don't be picking on Wisconsin. Most all of these are in the South, by the way. So, Monday, August 27th, 1998.
I didn't think there would be multiple in Wisconsin, is all I'm saying, right?
There's 2. On August 27th, 1990 at 12:50 a.m., Vaughn and members of the Eric Clapton's touring entourage played at an all-star encore jam session at Alpine Valley Music Theater in Alpine Valley in East Troy, Wisconsin. They left for Midway International Airport in Chicago in a Bell 206B helicopter. The most common way for acts to enter and exit the venue, as there are only one road in and out, heavily used by fans. The helicopter crashed into a nearby ski hill shortly after takeoff. Vaughn and the 4 others on board, pilot Jeff Brown, agent Bobby Brooks, bodyguard Nigel Brown, and tour manager Colin Smythe died. The helicopter was owned by Chicago-based company Omniflight Helicopters. The Elkhorn coroner's request found, and of course I scrolled too far, found that all 5 men died instantaneously. The investigation determined that the aircraft departed in flying conditions with visibility reported under 2 miles, according to the local forecast. The National Transportation Safety Board report stated as the third helicopter was departing, it remained lower altitude than the others, and the pilot turned southeasterly toward rising terrain. Subsequently, the helicopter crashed on a hilly terrain 3/5 of a mile from the takeoff point. Records show that Brown was qualified to fly by instruments in a fixed-wing aircraft, but not in a helicopter. So, pilot not being qualified was the cause of that one.
Helicopters are totally different machines. Don't let anyone say anything different.
We're going to pull this article in for a landing yet, because we get to number 11, October 12, 1997. John Denver went down in Monterey Bay, California. Denver died in the afternoon of October 12, 1997. Was light home-built aircraft that Rutan Long EZ with registration number N55JD crashed into Monterey Bay near Pacific Grove, California, while making a series of touch-and-go landings at nearby Monterey Peninsula Airport. He was the plane's only occupant. His cause of death was multiple blunt force trauma caused from the crash. Denver was a pilot with over 2,700 hours of experience. He had pilot ratings for single-engine and land-sea, multi-engine land glider and instrument. Denver was also held a type rating in his Learjet. He had recently purchased a Long Easy aircraft, EZ, letters EZ, aircraft made by someone else from a kit. He had taken a half-hour checkup flight with the aircraft the day before a crash. The post-crash investigation showed that he had trouble switching from one fuel tank to another. So while he was switching fuel tanks, he might have just run out of gas. That's the way that goes. Again, pilot error, I would say, because you were not familiar with your aircraft and you were playing around. So John Denver doing something dangerous, caused his own demise. You can't be too angry about that one. He didn't kill anybody else, at least. So number 12, the music died is August 25th. We're getting more modern times now. August 25th, 2001, the R&B singer Aaliyah died in the Bahamas.
I was wondering when you were going to mention this one. This is the one I know.
Well, we're doing them in order.
Yeah.
We're doing them in order. On August 25th, 2001, Aaliyah and some employees of a company boarded a twin-engine Cessna 402 light aircraft in Marsh Harbor Airport in Abaco Islands, the Bahamas, to travel to Overlock Airport in Florida after they completed filming the video for Rock the Boat. They had a flight scheduled the next day, but the filming finished early. Leah and her entourage were eager to return to the U.S. and decided to leave immediately. Another bad decision. The designated airplane was smaller than the Cessna 404, which they originally ride, but the whole party and all the equipment were accommodated on board. The plane crashed and caught fire shortly after takeoff, probably because it was overloaded with equipment that was intended to go into a bigger plane. Aaliyah and the 8 others on board, pilot Luis Morales III, hairstylist Eric Foreman, Anthony Dodd, security guard Scott Gallen, family friend Keith Wallace, makeup stylist Christopher Maldonado, and background records employees Douglas Kratz and Gina Smith were also killed. Number 13, and this is when it happened in 2017.
Hey, the music died.
The final day of music died was September 8th, 2017. It was Troy Gentry of the country group Montgomery Gentry, the other half of the Southern rock group, the Southern rock duo Montgomery Gentry. They died in a helicopter crash. Troy died on a helicopter crash on his way to a show. He was 50 years old. Gentry and his pilot died in September 8th crash in Medford, New Jersey. The pair were on board the aircraft when it crashed near the runway of the Flying W Airport and Resort, a small airport entertainment area. Eddie Montgomery, the other half of the duo, was at the airport waiting for Gentry to arrive when the crash occurred. The Cherry Hill Courier Post reported. According to a 2-page report several minutes after takeoff, the pilot reported at the airport he was unable to control engine RPM with throttle inputs. The pilot's early entry into failure to maintain rotor RPM during forced landing, auto rotation after performing engine shutdown in flight, which resulted in uncontrolled descent. The report rates contributing to the accident was the failure of maintenance personnel to properly rig the throttle control tie rod assembly. So we have mechanics.
Not the maintenance guys. Come on.
Yep. Yeah, well, helicopters are flying death traps. Some supplies there's not more of these, but only 2 helicopters. So there's your list for Thursday 13. See you.
Thursday 13. Wow. Okay. Well, honestly, like I said before you started listing off your things, happy to know that it was really hard to find a lot of them. There aren't like a million of them that you fill a list with, right? It's like
These are just the music business. Now, if I was just going to go with celebrities, there's a lot of celebrities. There's lots and lots and lots of celebrities.
There's some people who weren't even in a helicopter got killed by them, right? The actor in that film, his head chopped off by a rotary blade.
Vic Morrow and the 2 kids he was carrying during the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie.
Anyways, enough about death and destruction. Let's talk about getting charged for many crimes for making a controversial film in Iran. This is on The Guardian by Clark. We were charged with propaganda, vulgarity, and spreading prostitution. The directors of My Favorite Cake and The Cat as well. Maryam Mokadam and Batash Sania, the makers of the Guardian's #2 film of the year, are currently under arrest. Our talk about the trial, crossing red lines, and why we're ready to fight for it. Batash Sania says, we were supposed to be in court for making My Favorite Cake this morning, but there's a very high air pollution in Toronto today, so the government closed down all public buildings. We're charged with 3 charges. One is propaganda against the regime, another is breaking Islamic rules by making a vulgar movie, and the third is spreading prostitution and libertinism. It's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. People have been falling in love with My Favorite Cake. But how has your life changed because of that? Maryam Moghadam says, like you say, it has been really bittersweet. People really liked the film and supported it in everywhere in the world. So that was great for us. It felt like it was worth all the difficulties, because we took a step toward what we want to do in cinema in Iran. We crossed the red lines. It feels for the first time that we've made a film in Iran, which is real. In the film, you show a woman drinking alcohol, dancing, and not wearing a headscarf in her home. Are these the red lines you're talking about? Yes. After the revolution, women have been forced to have a double life. We are the same as we were before the revolution. Normal people dancing and singing. Outside, we are forced to be another person. Pretend that we are very religious. Wear the hijab. It's been forbidden to show this in movies. In 45 years, all the films you have seen show women in mandatory hijab even at home, which is not true. That's right. You don't have to wear it inside your house, so you take it off as soon as you get home. You've been praised for bravery in defying the authorities to release this film. It's nice to hear. We haven't felt it because we have been sitting on our sofa. We've read the articles, the critics, and it's been great to know that there are many positive thoughts. Yes. You also want to know about Kate. Cat is also
really,
like that.
Cat really. Who is meowing? That isn't me, by the way. That is a black cat.
The cat.
I could meow if you wanted me to. Meow, meow.
All right.
There you go. We've got
It's
the
very
animal
nice to
kingdom
hear.
today.
We haven't felt it because we have been sitting on our sofa. We've read the articles, the critics, and it's been great to know that there are many positive thoughts about what we've done. We are very happy and proud. You are stuck in your sofa because of bail restrictions. What are they? We're not allowed to make movies, to work, and there is a travel ban. There is a scene in the film in which the mortality police stop a young woman from not wearing hijab properly. In September 2022, while you were filming, Masha Amini was killed after being arrested for the same crime. That must have been a shock.
Jeez.
Yes. We didn't know even if we should continue shooting or not. All the crew decided together. We believed that it was our duty to finish the film. We knew that there would be consequences for all of us, but any filmmaker needs to be with his or her society. We have a very important movement in our country now, the women's movement, and we have to be part of it. You cannot be part of a big lie and expect these systematic big lies to change. You must take a step back from the lies. Many people in Iran are doing that now. Have you thought about leaving Iran? It is something you think about on the hardest days, but if you left, maybe life will be easier. But this is like a war. On the front, in any war, if you leave your side, you lose. You have to be there and fight. So what stage is the trial at? Interrogation sessions in court, which is inside the famous prison in Iran called Evin. In a couple of weeks, the case will be sent to the main revolutionary court. Interrogations? That sounds terrifying. It's mixed, actually. It's terrifying, but also feels sad and disappointing. They think that we have made a vulgar movie. You can see the difference in thinking. But there are just 10%. Most people are like us, not like them. They get to decide for us. They changed our world. Sometimes you feel not as a filmmaker, but as a person. Any person in Iran, you feel helpless. But there is always hope. And that's why we want to stay here and make movies, because there's hope to make change. What good things have happened this year because of the film? One of the biggest highlights was our film getting a lot of attention and love from people all around the world. That's heartwarming. It's the nicest thing that's happened this year. One of the happiest things in our life. Living together and having each other, because it's not easy to stay and fight in this way alone. The best part of our life is having each other, fighting together, and continuing together. What are your hopes for 2025? Can we say freedom for everyone in the world? Freedom is a good thing to wish for. So there you go. There's your short little interview with the two filmmakers of My Favorite Cake, the controversial Iranian film that shows women being people.
No, not that.
How are we supposed to put women on a pedestal of being some sort of famed baby maker if they are just like us? I don't know what to do.
No, man. What are you
But there you
thinking
go.
there in your brain?
There is
Okay.
your little interview there, and on to this day in history. Another list. More lists.
Right. More lists. Anyway, I did send you a video last night. I just remembered that.
I've already had that in since before, so all good.
And right on. Okay, so this day in history, we'll rip through this one. December 19th in 1777, during the American Revolution, General George Washington led 11,000 regulars to take up winter headquarters at Valley Forge on the west bank of the Schuylkill River, 20 miles northwest of Philadelphia.
Wow.
So the famous Valley Forge winter, where one of our ancestors was there. 1843, English author Charles Dickens published A Christmas Carol, which became one of the outstanding Christmas stories of modern literature. So that happened 181 years ago. Wow. In 1910, Jean Genet, a French criminal and social outcast turned writer who, as a dramatist, became the leading figure in the avant-garde theater, especially the theater of the absurd, was born. So it was his birthday today. French singer Edith Piaf was born in this day in 1915. Her interpretation of the chanson, the French ballet, made her internationally famous. Edith Piaf, born in this day in 1915. 1936, the Viet Minh, founded by the Vietnamese nationalist Ho Chi Minh, began the First Indochina War against France, which morphed 20 years later to the Americans trying to rescue Vietnam from itself. And boy, that succeeded, didn't it?
No, they didn't.
Anyway,
and Vietnam turned out just fine, didn't it? So I guess.
Oh, yeah. Vietnam's a healthy democracy in this day and age, but again, it wasn't because of the war, because we finally got out of there. 1966, the United Nations General Assembly endorsed the Outer Space Treaty, international treaty binding the parties to use outer space only for peaceful purposes. And of course, we know Star Wars took place a long time ago. So wait for this. In 1971, sci-fi drama Clockwork Orange was widely distributed. Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of a novel by Anthony Burgess had its premiere, although widely claimed the movie's violent sexual explicit scenes proved controversial, received an X rating, released in the United States, which made people want to see it more.
Yeah,
1974.
yeah.
That's an X rating. Can't take the kids. Yay, no kids. 1974. Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller was sworn in 41st Vice President of the United States, succeeding Gerald Ford, who had been elevated to the presidency following the resignation of Richard Nixon. Nelson Rockefeller was a liberal Republican. Not a thing anymore. 1997, James Cameron's Titanic, a drama about the doomed ocean liner starring Leonardo DiCaprio, premiered. It became one of the highest grossing films of all time. In 2012, Park Geun-hye, H-Y-E, I'm going to pronounce that, became the first female to be elected president of South Korea. She was sworn in office following year, however, she also became the first Democratic elected president to be removed from office when she was impeached in 2017.
Yep. All due to the ferry disaster. There was a huge ferry disaster where they just did no action at all. I'm sure she was corrupt in other ways.
There was plenty of
and that was the final straw that broke the camel's back, is a bunch of people died in a needless sinking of a ship. They could have helped them and they didn't help them.
Yeah, just absolute disaster. Yeah. And another impeachment on this day, in 1998, the House of Representatives voted to charge Bill Clinton with something. Not exactly sure what, but they didn't like him, so they wanted him out.
Separation of church and state actually doesn't exist.
He wanted to have his own sex life private. What a guy. What a terrible human. Oh my God. The first president to ever have sex with somebody that's not his wife. Let's get him. It's total horse shit then, and it's still total horse shit. I'm
pretty sure Bill Clinton was using his position as president to sexually assault somebody, but again, our current incoming president is known also to do that, and no one cares, so.
Yeah. They just vote him, and the same people that voted him Clinton was minor aliens. Just can't wait to kiss one particular old 80-year-old ass.
Underage and rapist, basically, yeah.
Yeah, he's just a piece of shit. Anyway, Leonid Brezhnev's birthday today. He was a former premier of the Soviet Union. December 19th, 1906 was his birthday. It's somewhere in the Russian Empire. That'd be cool on my birth certificate.
And he died.
Russian Empire, that's where it's born. Russian Empire is what it says, not somewhere. He died November 10, 1982 at the age of 75 in Moscow. Other birthdays, Cicely Tyson, American actor, turns 100 today. Happy birthday to Cicely Tyson. Reggie White, the late, great Reggie White, born in 1961, would be his 63rd birthday today. Jake Gyllenhaal is born in 1980. He's an American actor, and that's his birthday. What days is it today? We'll wrap this up. It's National Regifting Day, so we covered that. Give something that somebody else gave you that you really don't like that much, but it's not a bad thing. It's just like, I think this other person would like it better.
Exactly.
Just hopefully they don't run into the person that gave you that thing, and they ask you what you're doing with it. But whatever. It's National Oatmeal Muffin Day and National Hard Candy Day, so that's a good combination, I guess. Those are the three things today. Those are days. Those are for November 19th, 2024 on Before Oatmeal Muffins.
Alright, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands. No, you and observances today. And this has been Rod from the West Coast of the US. We will see you tomorrow for Friday News Dump, where we are going to cover all the news we can before the weekend, so you don't have to worry about it. So make sure you're already subscribed, notified, and like this video. Comment down below what gifts you have that you would like to re-gift. Maybe we can make a little secret Santa in the comment section. Hey, I'd love some new socks that you don't like the pattern of. We're on perfect. That sweater you don't like? I'd love a new sweater. Anyways, hope you guys have a good rest of your Thursday. Remember all those people who tragically died in stupid plane accidents due to idiot pilots and malfunctions, and a lot of ways human hubris is what killed those people, unfortunately. And remember to keep a check on your own hubris, because everyone can die at any moment. Anyways, I know that's the best message to leave you with. We'll see you.
I try to get a checkup. to get a checkup for my hubris, but the insurance won't pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Freaking CEOs again, at it again. We will see you tomorrow, and if not, I hope you have a good rest of your week. Here is our mic drop moment.
Judy Pugh rushed to her hallway with her 3 cats when she saw debris spinning in the air. As the roof blew away, a wall fell on top of her.
I tried to get to my hands and knees, and I couldn't. I heard the young men hollering, Miss Judy, are you in there?"
Judy escaped with black eyes, but says she would have been sucked away by that tornado if it weren't for that very wall. Out of this remarkable story, her house is gone. She found a couple of things that she still has. Crystal bowls inside her kitchen cabinet, completely untouched. But that doesn't matter to Judy. She has what she loves. 2 of her cats survived. 1 hasn't been seen since the storm. But Judy doesn't give up hope, looking every day for the last 3 weeks for her lost friend. Unbelievably, during our visit, Judy's shaggy friend of 10 years came out of nowhere.
"See your mama. Oh, God, love it. Oh, honey. Honey, oh. Oh, my God, you probably don't like your plans. Oh. Oh. Oh, honey. Oh. I have everything in the world now. I have that 3 cats.
Katie made it through the tornado, heat, and cold without food or water for nearly a month.
I've got Katie. I'm at the house. I wish he could talk. He could tell me where he's been.
Reunited once again, Judy is now ready to move on. In Tuscaloosa,
It's my baby. My one blue eye and one green eye. God love it.
Ted McInerney, CBS 42 News.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.